Welcome, everybody. We're coming to you from day 4 of the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis. This is Patriots Draft Countdown presented by Bud Light. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. And the workout started last night, Evan. We're really getting into the meat of the Combine. I think for a lot of people, they think this is when the Combine actually starts. Like, I saw a lot of tweets of like, oh, the Combine's finally starting Thursday. I'm like, we've been here for like 3 days already doing interviews. But this is when it gets interesting. Certainly guys perform well. Other guys choose not to work out as well.
Right.
We actually got a chance. Finally, we went and sat inside the what is it, the RCA Dome? Not anymore. What do we call it now? You've been there before.
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. Lucas Oil.
Lucas Oil. Thanks, Evan.
Of course, I blanked as soon as you asked me that question.
I blanked as soon as I thought of it.
Yeah,
but pretty cool experience, getting to see it. We all watch it on television plenty, and so to see the drills go through was pretty interesting. So just off the top, what were your takeaways from that first set of workouts with the defensive linemen and linebackers?
Yeah, I think obviously when you get into the actual athletic testing, you don't really need to see that. Like, you can just get the number, but it was really cool to be inside the stadium to watch the drills on the field. You just get a different feel for, you can hear the pop on the pads, and you can see the footwork a little bit better, and that was cool. And I can understand now, if you're a scout, you have to be there. Like, you have to be able to see it, and there is a difference. It's almost like a game, right? There is a difference to being there in person. Now, in terms of the workouts, I think right off the top of the draft, it was just a little bit disappointing, the amount of guys that didn't work out that are going to be in the conversation for the Patriots at 4 overall. Abdul Carter, we know about the foot situation. That was an injury-related situation. Mason Graham holding off to his pro day. Jalen Walker holding off to his pro day. Michael Williams has a tweak of a hamstring, I believe it was, that caused him to sit out this yesterday. So all the guys that we were talking about in terms of that range didn't really participate. The one guy that maybe we could talk about in that range that had a great workout was obviously Shedeur Stewart from Texas A&M. A lot of people were expecting that to happen, and there's an old someone told me, scouting term, don't count it twice. So if you knew that Shedeur Stewart was a great athlete, this doesn't make it any better. Right. Like, we already knew he was a unicorn athlete, so don't count it twice. But at the same time, you look at the traits, you look at the production in terms of the advanced metrics like pressures and disruption and all that kind of stuff. He didn't have the sacks, but he had all of that in his favor. So maybe a little rich at 4 overall for the Patriots, but if they do execute a trade down, then I think Shedeur Stewart's in the conversation.
Yeah, so we've also got an interview coming up with Dane Brugler, who provided a little bit more insight on Shedeur Stewart. Obviously an outstanding day for him that certainly improved his status. Today, we've moved on in the interview portion, at least, with the wide receivers and the running backs and the quarterbacks as well. Tet McMillan, another piece, not going to run. That was something I was kind of interested to see, and probably not surprising that he chose to delay that or perhaps put it off entirely. But we did get a chance to talk to some of these receiver options. Not a great class this year, and again, Dane provided a little bit more insight on that as well. What were your takeaways here from this morning with the wide receivers and the running backs?
Definitely disappointed, and honestly, small c concerned that Tet McMillan doesn't want to run here at the Combine. That signals to me that some of the concerns about his top-end speed and explosiveness might be legitimate. If he goes out, like Dane said, and runs a 4.55, then that's going to hurt his stock, and he doesn't want to do that. If he knew he was going to run well and kind of take people by surprise there, then he'd be running. So that's a little bit of a concern to me. I already had some concerns with him in terms of that on tape, that he's not exactly the most dynamic mover. And, yeah, he's got great body control and great size, but you worry about separation, especially second, third level separation with Tet McMillan, that maybe it's a little bit rich, for 4 overall for that type of player. The other guys that I thought were impressive were maybe a little bit further down the board that we can get to as well. But just off the top again, I still don't really understand what's going on with Luther Burden and why he seems to be falling out of the first round in a lot of mock drafts and things like that. I still see him as a really talented player, top 20, top 25 talent in this class. So we'll see what he does. I believe he is going to test, and maybe he has a great workout on Saturday, and that changes everything for him.
Yeah, so a really deep running back class this year. A lot of people have been talking about, of course, Ashton Jeanty from Boise State atop the list. Another guy that kind of had that Georgia, I'm already in the league vibe as well. Would point him out, but I think that there's some good depth, and it seems to me like this is a great year. 3rd round, 4th round, take a flyer on one of these guys. Patriots obviously have 2 running backs under contract as of right now with Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson. Pretty good place to start. But I think it's a spot that they could still probably use some reinforcements and some young depth.
100%. And this definitely feels like a third or fourth round pick. They have those 2 third-rounders and then another pick at the top of the 4th round where you can find at least a RB 1.5, right? Like a B, to Ramondre Stevenson being your A back in the committee. So I don't know if you're necessarily going to find Ashton Gentry is kind of like, a lead back, right? That's going to be a cornerstone of your offense. But in 3rd or 4th round, you can get a really solid, backup running back to Ramondre, or even somebody that could push Ramondre if he doesn't fix the fumbling issues and ball security concerns. A couple of guys that stand out to me that I'm looking forward to watching a workout. Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State, I think, is a really fun player, a really explosive player, can catch the ball out of the backfield too and use that dynamic moving ability all over the field. I just like those types of guys at that spot. Like, they kind of have a road grader with Ramondre, a guy that's going to pick up the tough yards and run the ball between the tackles. So adding somebody with some juice might be something that is appealing. And then Devin Neal from Kansas, I think, is a guy that if you want to go more power back, Vrabel style, but has some juice to get the edge. And I had a really great workout at the Senior Bowl, or practice week at the Senior Bowl. So those were a couple guys that stood out to me at the podiums, and then, with Neal down in Mobile a couple months ago. So I look at those 2 guys as a nice possibility for the Patriots there.
Yeah, the Patriots quarterback, not a need necessarily, but do have to mention Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. Shedeur Sanders holding
court. They looked
court.
great. They were fantastic. I think they should go 1-2
right.
in this draft.
Somebody needs – the way Shedeur Sanders was talking, it was the confidence of his father. It was the Deion Sanders. I heard him say history repeats itself, and I've, restored 2 programs, and I'll be able to do that in the NFL as well. He does not lack confidence at all. I enjoyed listening to him talk.
Yeah, he was fun to listen to, and I was actually talking to somebody about these 2 quarterbacks, and we were talking about Josh Allen and how Josh Allen has broken all of our brains when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks. And we kind of talked ourselves into Drake May in the same sense, because you feel like you can fix mechanics a little bit more now than maybe we felt 5-10 years ago because of guys like Josh Allen. And I look at a player like Cam Ward and think there's so much raw tools there and upside with his arm talent. And maybe if you get him more refined, like a Josh Allen, like a Drake May, he's going to blossom into the league into a great quarterback. Whereas with Shedeur, I see a floor quarterback. Like, I see a guy that already has all that because he's been coached by his father his entire life, and Tom Brady a little bit too. And he already has all those details and minutia. So now you worry about how much better is he really going to get at the next level, because he's kind of tapped out a little bit. But you feel really comfortable about him stepping in, handling the spotlight, handling the pressure that comes with being a franchise quarterback, and being good enough that if he's surrounded by enough weapons, if he goes to the Giants and he has Malik Neighbors and they keep stacking talent on that roster, then you could see him being an effective point guard of an offense. I'm just not sure he's an elevator of an offense, but he might be an elevator of a culture, which is what he tried to tell us when he said that he fixed 2 programs. I'll give him Jackson State. Colorado, they're much better than they were. I don't know if he fixed Colorado. We're not in college football playoffs or anything like that in Boulder, but I can see where he's coming from.
So we had an opportunity to sit down with Dane Brugler from The Athletic, who writes the huge monster, the beast, appropriately named, that we all excitedly wait for. Unfortunately, it comes out in April, so you feel like you kind of know everything, and then all of a sudden you just get this huge Bible dropped on you with so much detail, and it's I think it's a great kind of finishing touch to the draft. So really cool to get an opportunity to sit down with Dane. Here's what he had to say. All right, we're excited to be joined now by Dane Brugler from The Athletic, the producer. What do you call it? I don't know.
Author,
it's not just an author. It's more than that, of the beast, which we all wait for every year. And we're also grateful for all the hard work you put in. I got to start off with the question I'm sure you get. Just what is your process like over the course of the year, putting the beast together?
Well, it takes the full year, and even more so than that, because inevitably you pick up different tidbits for the future class. And so, it's a process. And, at my heart, I'm a draft fan, so I want to make something that I would want to read and consume and really enjoy. And so no detail is too small. I'm a big believer in, to know where these guys are headed, you need to know where they came from. And so understand their journey. Understand everything that got them to this point, the doorstep of the NFL, and that helps you understand them as people. Then, of course, the analysis part, just making sure you're studying the tape, talking to scouts, talking to teams, understanding what they do well, what'll translate, what won't translate. So certainly a process, and we're down to this last month, which gives me anxiety to think about. But excited to share it with everybody here early April.
Yeah, we're excited to get it for sure. Just from a Patriots perspective, 4th overall, I think we're all kind of in the same position where we're, maybe Hunter or Carter were to fall, probably not. Does Will Campbell make sense there? Is there someone else? Is there a trade down? I mean, it's last year it was so straightforward with quarterback at 3. Now it seems a little bit more uncertainty. What are your thoughts on the Patriots' position at 4th overall?
Yeah, and I think there's a very good chance that Cam Ward's the number 1 pick. I think if where we are right now, with what we know right now, I think he's the favorite to be that number 1 pick. Now, to who, it could be the Titans, could be the Giants, could be another team. And then after that, it gets interesting. I think the Browns want out of there. I think they'd love to trade back. Do they have a trade partner? Who knows? But I would agree with you that the chances of Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter falling to 4 are probably not great. They're probably not high. And then, okay, what direction do you pivot? Say you can't trade back, say you're stuck at 4. Is there an offensive lineman you love enough to take a 4? Whether that's Will Campbell from LSU, could you take Armand Membu from Missouri that early? Which of these offensive linemen do you like the best? And then besides the offensive line, is there someone else? Could it be a T-Mac from Arizona, who unfortunately is not going to be working out here this week? But could it be another one of those players that you feel like, all right, we drop him into our on our team, and he's going to make the biggest impact for us? We can get caught up too much in need, and of course they need more help at receiver. Of course they'll need more help on the offensive line. When you're drafting top 5, you can't think like that. You have to think about, for the next 4 or 5 years, who's going to make the greatest impact. And that could be a pass rusher. That could be somebody else on the defensive line. So for the Patriots, you got to list your top 4 players in this draft who are going to impact your roster for the next 5 years. You're guaranteed to get one of those guys, and it'll be interesting.
I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned T-Mac's not going to work out. It seems like that's pretty prevalent right now, especially with the top guys in this draft. Do you feel like it's more than it's been in the past? And what are teams saying about the future of this event in terms of the athletic testing?
Yeah, I was talking with a scout yesterday about this, and he seemed very confident that, because there's a lot of players that do want to work out. There's a lot of players that look at this as an opportunity to just go show out and show what they can do, because there's the peak athletes. The top guys at each position, I think, feel like they have a little bit of leverage where I can only hurt myself. An Ashton Genty, T-Mac. If T-Mac goes out there and runs a 4.55, is he hurting himself at that point? But there's different ways to think about it, because what happens when you go to your pro day and you have a stomach bug that morning? What happens when maybe you don't have your best day, you stumble, whatever. Like, you're putting all your eggs in that basket. And this is a fast track here in Indy. So the chance to go out there and, even if it's not the greatest time, hey, just cross it off, check the box, move on. And, for the most part, teams aren't going to adjust their rankings based off of the littlest changes in your 40-yard dash. If you like T-Mac, you've seen him, so he's not going to run a 4.3. He's probably a 4.52 athlete, and that's fine. T. Higgins was a 4.59 athlete in his 40-yard dash.
Right.
So it's more about focusing on the strengths, what they do well, and why you love T-Mac as a receiver. It's not necessarily the speed. It's his ability to be a ball winner. It's the flexibility and the fluidity that he has in and out of his breaks, at the catch point. Nobody over the last 2 years in college football has more catches of 20-plus yards than T-Mac. And so he's a guy that's super talented. The production is there. I think he's a top 10 pick in this class when you just focus on the players available this year. Would the Patriots take him as early as 4? I think he at least should be in the conversation.
Before we get a little bit deeper, I did want to ask you about Mason Graham. Mm-hmm. And yesterday weighs in. He's only about 296 pounds, which checks out a little bit better than the 320 I think that they had at Michigan. But I heard you on the radio in Boston, I think it was on the Sports Hub in Boston, saying he's not necessarily a Quinnen Williams level prospect, but he's really good. Where do you kind of fall on Mason Graham, and do you still see him going as early as 4 after the weigh-ins and stuff?
Yeah, I think the combine's not made for a guy like Mason Graham, because he doesn't have the ideal body type. His arms are a little bit shorter. He's not working out, which I don't I think he would have been fine. I don't think he would have, blown it up at all. He's a guy that you watch the tape and you're like, all right, good football player. But is he a Quinnen Williams, ascend, or type of guy that's going to turn your defensive line from good to great? That's where, I think there's a little bit of a question mark. And ideally, if you're picking a defensive tackle top 5, that's who you want.
Right.
But you know what? You can't force something that's not there. And in this class, Mason Graham is one of the best, 7 players in the draft. And so even though he might not be a Quinnen Williams type of impact prospect, he's still a good player. I mean, you watch the film, and I don't know how you could come away from watching his film and say, he's okay. Like, he consistently disrupts, and you see that with the block deconstruction, former wrestler. You see the leverage. He's a leverage monster. I mean, it's the only way to describe him. So he can win with quickness, win with power. There's just a lot to like about the way he plays when he suits up on game day.
This week there'll be risers, fallers. We'll kind of regroup after this. As we get to the Patriots' second-round pick down there, do you feel like where's the value going to be? What positions do you have a sense of what might get kind of pushed down as maybe certain guys come up, certain guys fall? I know it's hard to say right at this point, but I think that's what we're looking at with that in the second pick.
Right. I think defensive line, because it's a deep defensive line group, and not all of them are going to go in the first round, so there will be plenty of guys, like an Alfred Collins from Texas, who didn't have a great vertical, but you know what? You watch the film, and he's just consistently disruptive. He's 6'5", 335 pounds, really long. So a guy like that who maybe doesn't go in the first, but he's going to be there in the second. I think there's a couple of those defensive linemen that will be there where you could really bolster your depth and get a good player in the second round. Receiver's tough because, let's just say the Patriots go defensive line in the first. What receivers are going to be there for you in the early second round? Usually we're spoiled with too many receivers every year. This year is a little bit of the opposite. Let's say 4 receivers go first round. Let's say it's T-Mac, it's Golden, it's Ibuka, and Travis Hunter, and Burden, Luther Burden. Is there somebody else that you love in this class? Jalen Royals, Jaden Higgins. I love Jalen Noel, but are any of those guys worth the pick in the early second round? That's something that I think the Patriots might struggle with, finding a guy that you could say they struggled with it last year at the top of the second round, finding a guy that you point to and say, oh yeah, this is the guy we need for our offense.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the receiver position a little bit. I think we're all kind of expecting trenches early from the Patriots. That's what all of their decision makers have been telling us for a couple months now. So assuming, let's say they go offensive line, defensive line with their first 2 picks, is there any third, fourth round receivers that you see as fits?
I think Jack Bash would fit with. He seems like a Mike Vrabel guy. The toughness, the physicality, the way he plays, the mindset. I think Jack Bash would be a really good fit. I mentioned Jalen Noel. I think he's going to run really well here. He's not the biggest guy. He's 5'9.5", under 200 pounds. But he can win vertically. He can win on quick hitters and then be a threat after the catch. I'm a big fan of Noel and what he brings, and if he were to make it to the third round, I would love that fit, even though, again, doesn't have the size, but he can still get open and make plays. Elik Eomanor from Stanford, he's interesting. He's still relatively new to football, still learning in a lot of ways, but he's built well, he has talent. Eager to see what he runs, because on tape he looks more like a 4-5 guy. But you know what? If he were able to get into 4.4s, that might change the thinking with him about, okay, is he a late third rounder? Maybe take him early third round. But there's a lot to like with A.O. Manor when you get to after the first 2 rounds.
He had that great game against Travis Hunter a couple years ago, and that's one of the best wide receiver tapes I've seen out of any of these guys in this class.
And you saw it all in there. You saw speed, you saw physicality. He was at the podium, is actually talking about that.
You're getting put on the spot.
It's for you.
No.
Thank you. Come back in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, I've already had some.
Yeah, I've had enough.
Thank you.
Though.
The timing of that was impeccable.
as always, they got us last year live, and we harked them down, but we'll keep it just to the beast at this point. Just any other players that stand out to you, personal favorites, guys that you just really enjoy kind of watching this offseason?
Well, Carson Schwessinger, the linebacker from UCLA, is one of my favorites. It's just speed and instincts. You know, if that sounds okay for you in a linebacker, you're going to like Carson Schlesinger. And maybe just recency bias because, you know, in the stadium last night watching those guys work out, it was fun to see Shedeur Stewart work. I mean, that guy is the freak of all the freaks. The rumor they're going to name the combine after him after what he did yesterday. I mean, 158 10-yard split at that size is ridiculous. Von Miller's 10-yard split was 159. Yeah. So just a context of how that burst and that elite get-off. And you saw that at the Senior Bowl, saw that on tape. And all the talk's going to be about 1.5 sacks. I get it. But when you watch the tape, you see a more productive player because he's able to make the quarterback move his feet, be disruptive. And, yeah, do you want him to get sacks? Of course. But if you're being disruptive and you're affecting the backfield action, then you're doing your job as a pass rusher. And so Shedeur Stewart does that consistently, and that's why I think when it's all said and done, he's going to be somewhere in those top 15 picks. It's just a matter of, you know, how high does he go?
I want to ask you one last one, and then we'll let you go. Tight end. I feel like in this class, we talked a lot about wide receiver and how it's not as great of a class. How much, how much are people talking about, well, maybe we should just take Tyler Warren instead of, drafting a receiver in the top 10?
Sure.
And two, who are some of those day 2, day 3 tight ends that you like?
Yeah, you could make a case, say there's only 12, 13 first-round grades in this year, this class. You could make a case that, Warren's one of them. You make a case Colston Loveland from Michigan's one of them. Again, it should come down to who's going to impact your offense the most. And if you come away thinking that it could be Tyler Warren, then, hey, you owe it to yourselves to at least consider that possibility, even though a tight end that early definitely feels rich. But this is a unique draft class, very unique. And it's ironic, last year was so deep, and a guy like Brock Bowers, who was a top 5 talent in that class, falls all the way to 13. But this year, it's just not as deep. And a guy like Tyler Warren, who, and Colston Loveland, they're not quite Brock Bowers, but they still can impact the game. One of the reasons not to take a tight end early is because it is deep. Mason Arroyo, or Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, big fan of Gunnar Helm from Texas. I think all those 3 guys are all starters in the NFL. I think Harold Fannin Jr. is on his way. Not as immediate for him, but you don't catch 117 balls in college football in a single season if you're not a talented receiver. So, and then even into day 3, Terrence Ferguson from Oregon's a really good player. It's a position that will stretch, and as much as I like Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, it's kind of the reason we're like, hey, let's get our offensive tackle now. Let's get our defensive lineman now, and we can wait on tight end because we know the caliber of player that'll be there for us rounds 2, 3, and 4.
How do you get the birthdays? That's because that's always my. Yeah. You Google how old is somebody and it's never right or it's never accurate. Like that's my number one question about.
Talk to the player. I talk to the player. Go straight to the horse's mouth and say, hey, 23 in August, right? 22nd? Yep. Okay. Perfect. Boom. Because that's, you would think it'd be more or easier. A lot of schools 100%. Make it easy on you, because they have them and you can trust those. But, yeah, I've learned over the years Google is not the most reliable when it comes to the birth dates for the prospects.
100%.
Yeah. Hilarious. Well, Tim, we'll let you get back to the beast. I'm sure you got work to do. Thanks so much for sitting down with us.
Anytime. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. All right, so enjoyed talking to Dan. I can't wait to get that beast. And if you don't subscribe to The Athletic, I think the beast is pretty much worth it on its own. You don't even need anything else. It's about a 500-page document. But this is going to do it for us here at the Combine, but Evan, still plenty more going on after we're boots off the ground. The workouts will continue. You'll continue to do some write-ups on that. Just looking forward here to the weekend. Of course, Will Campbell's arm length, baby. That's going to be the big one we're all waiting for. But what else are you looking forward to, interested to watch over the next couple of days as all these guys test out?
On Thursday, Travis Hunter did say that he's going to work out with the DB, so I am interested to see what he does and how he tests and all those types of things. So I'm curious if he then comes back on Saturday and runs routes. I don't know how they're going to do that, so that will be interesting. So I'm definitely looking forward to him and this tight end class. This tight end class is going to put on an absolute show, and we talked to Dane about it. Is there an argument for Tyler Warren? Is there an argument in a trade down maybe more realistically for Colston Loveland that no, you can't get the Marvin Harrison Jr., the Malik Neighbors in this class at the wide receiver position, but you can get Brock Bowers, right? Is there that case to be made that that's a more effective route for the Patriots to find that dictating pass catcher number 1 receiver? And I can always say, we had Gronk. Like you shouldn't like look
He's
at that
the number one, right?
Yeah, and say, oh, like you can't build it through a tight end when we know very well in New England that you can. So I'm excited to see those guys as well.
All right, well, that's going to be a wrap from the Combine, but believe me, we are just getting started. I know this week we'll have a free agency preview video coming out. Paul Perillo will join us. And I think, Evan, your first mock draft is going to come out this week.
Post-Combine mock. There we go.
Right, so all the movers and fallers and shakers, Evan's got a finger on the pulse of all of that. So, again, the draft is rapidly approaching, as is free agency, but we got you covered. Plenty of content coming your way. Stick with us all spring.